Let us begin with local government administration. This is a very important topic in government. It appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the meaning of local government, the reasons for creating local governments, the functions of local governments, the structure of local government, the sources of revenue for local governments, the problems facing local governments, the reforms of local government in Nigeria, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is local government? Local government is the system of administration at the grassroots level. It is the third tier of government, after the federal and state governments. Local governments are created by state governments. They are the closest level of government to the people. They are responsible for providing services to local communities. The 1999 Constitution recognizes local governments as the third tier. However, they are not as independent as the federal and state governments. They depend on state governments for many things. Local government is important because it brings government closer to the people. Citizens can interact with local officials more easily than with federal or state officials. They can express their concerns. They can demand services. They can participate in local decision-making through town hall meetings and local elections. Now let me explain the reasons for creating local governments. There are several reasons. The first reason is to bring government closer to the people. The federal and state governments are far away. Local governments are in the community. People can easily access them. The second reason is to provide services at the grassroots level. Local governments provide roads, markets, primary schools, health centers, and waste collection. These services affect people's daily lives. The third reason is to promote democracy and participation. Citizens can participate in local elections. They can join local government meetings. They can voice their opinions. This builds democratic habits. The fourth reason is to facilitate development. Local governments identify local needs. They can implement projects that address those needs. They can also support federal and state projects in their areas. The fifth reason is to serve as a link between the people and higher levels of government. Local governments communicate the needs of the people to the state and federal governments. They also communicate government policies to the people. The sixth reason is to train political leaders. Many national leaders started their careers in local government. They learned how to govern at the grassroots level. The seventh reason is to reduce the workload of higher levels of government. The federal and state governments cannot handle every local issue. Local governments handle local matters. This allows higher levels to focus on national and regional issues. Now, let me explain the functions of local government. The 1999 Constitution lists the functions of local governments. The first function is the maintenance of law and order. Local governments can create bylaws. They can enforce these laws through local courts and law enforcement. The second function is the provision of basic services. Local governments provide primary education, primary healthcare, waste collection, and sanitation. They also build and maintain local roads, markets, parks, and recreational facilities. The third function is economic development. Local governments support agriculture, small-scale industries, and trade. They build markets and provide spaces for businesses. They also collect taxes and fees from local businesses. The fourth function is environmental protection. Local governments manage waste disposal. They clear drainage systems. They also plant trees and maintain green spaces. The fifth function is cultural preservation. Local governments support traditional institutions, festivals, and cultural activities. They also maintain cultural sites and monuments. The sixth function is registration of births, deaths, and marriages. Local governments maintain these records. They also issue certificates. The seventh function is registration of vehicles and bicycles. Local governments collect fees for these registrations. The eighth function is provision of public amenities. Local governments maintain streetlights, public toilets, and community centers. Now let me explain the structure of local government. The structure of local government has several components. The first component is the local government chairman. The chairman is the chief executive officer of the local government. The chairman is elected by the people. The chairman leads the local government. He or she presides over the executive council. He or she implements council decisions. The second component is the local government council. The council is the legislative body. It makes bylaws. It approves budgets. It oversees the executive. Councillors are elected from wards. The third component is the supervisory councillors. They are appointed by the chairman. They oversee specific departments like health, education, works, or agriculture. The fourth component is the secretary to the local government. The secretary is the chief administrative officer. He or she manages the local government's bureaucracy. The fifth component is the heads of departments. They include the treasurer, the engineer, the health officer, the education officer, and the agricultural officer. They manage the day-to-day operations of their departments. The sixth component is the wards. Each local government is divided into wards. Each ward elects a councillor to the local government council. The ward is the smallest political unit. The seventh component is the development areas. Some local governments create development areas to bring services even closer to the people. Now let me explain the sources of revenue for local governments. Local governments need money to perform their functions. They get revenue from several sources. The first source is statutory allocation from the federal government. The federal government allocates a percentage of the federation account to local governments. This money is distributed through the state governments. The second source is statutory allocation from the state government. State governments also provide funds to local governments. The third source is internally generated revenue. Local governments collect taxes and fees. They collect property taxes, also called tenement rates. They collect market fees, stall fees, and parking fees. They collect fees for registration of births, deaths, and marriages. They collect fees for vehicle and bicycle registration. They collect fines from local courts. They also generate revenue from investments and properties they own. The fourth source is grants and aid from federal and state governments. The higher levels of government provide grants for specific projects. The fifth source is loans from banks and other financial institutions. Local governments can borrow money for development projects. The sixth source is donations from individuals, companies, and non-governmental organizations. Now let me explain the problems facing local government in Nigeria. Local governments face many problems. The first problem is inadequate funding. The statutory allocations are often delayed or reduced. Internally generated revenue is low. This makes it difficult for local governments to perform their functions. The second problem is dependence on state governments. Local governments are constitutionally subject to state governments. State governments can withhold funds. They can dissolve local government councils. They can interfere in local government affairs. The third problem is corruption. Local government officials often steal public funds. They award contracts to their friends and family. They employ unqualified relatives. This wastes resources. The fourth problem is lack of qualified personnel. Many local government staff are not properly trained. They lack the skills to manage modern local government. The fifth problem is political interference. State governors often interfere in local government elections. They appoint caretaker committees instead of allowing elected councils. This undermines democracy at the grassroots. The sixth problem is low internally generated revenue. Many local governments are poor. They cannot collect enough taxes and fees. The people are also poor. They cannot pay much. The seventh problem is poor infrastructure. Many local government offices lack computers, vehicles, and office equipment. Staff cannot work effectively. The eighth problem is the creation of too many local governments. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria. Many are not viable. They cannot generate enough revenue. They depend entirely on federal allocations. Now let me explain the reforms of local government in Nigeria. Several reforms have been introduced to improve local government. The first reform was the 1976 Local Government Reform. This reform created a uniform system of local government throughout Nigeria. It recognized local government as the third tier of government. It provided for elected councils. It also created the joint state-local government account. The second reform was the 1979 Constitution. It included local government in the Constitution. It also provided for the allocation of funds to local governments. The third reform was the 1988 Local Government Reform. This reform gave local governments more autonomy. It abolished the joint state-local government account. It created a separate local government account. It also created the Local Government Service Commission to handle personnel matters. The fourth reform was the 1999 Constitution. It recognized local government as the third tier. It provided for democratically elected local government councils. It also provided for the allocation of funds from the federation account. The fifth reform was the creation of the Local Government Service Commission in many states. This commission handles recruitment, promotion, and discipline of local government staff. The sixth reform was the introduction of the local government financial autonomy movement. This movement seeks to give local governments direct access to their funds. Currently, funds are distributed through state governments. This allows state governments to control local governments. The financial autonomy movement wants funds to go directly to local governments. A common exam question asks you to define local government and state the reasons for creating it. Here is a sample answer. Local government is the system of administration at the grassroots level. The reasons for creating local government include bringing government closer to the people, providing services at the grassroots, promoting democracy and participation, facilitating development, serving as a link between the people and higher levels of government, training political leaders, and reducing the workload of higher levels of government. Another exam question asks you to describe the functions of local government. Here is your answer. The functions of local government include maintaining law and order, providing basic services like primary education and primary health care, promoting economic development, protecting the environment, preserving culture, registering births, deaths, and marriages, registering vehicles and bicycles, and providing public amenities like streetlights and public toilets. These functions affect the daily lives of citizens. Another exam question asks you to identify the problems facing local government in Nigeria. Here is your answer. The problems include inadequate funding, dependence on state governments, corruption, lack of qualified personnel, political interference, low internally generated revenue, poor infrastructure, and the creation of too many local governments. These problems have prevented local governments from effectively serving the people. Reforms are needed to address these issues. Another exam question asks you to discuss the reforms of local government in Nigeria. Here is your answer. The major reforms include the 1976 Local Government Reform, which created a uniform system, the 1979 Constitution, which included local government in the Constitution, the 1988 Local Government Reform, which gave local governments more autonomy, the 1999 Constitution, which recognized local government as the third tier, the creation of local government service commissions, and the movement for local government financial autonomy. These reforms have improved local government, but many problems remain. Here is what you need to take away. Local government is the third tier of government. It brings government closer to the people. Its functions include providing basic services, maintaining order, and promoting development. Its structure includes the chairman, council, supervisory councillors, secretary, department heads, and wards. Its revenue comes from statutory allocations, internally generated revenue, grants, loans, and donations. Its problems include inadequate funding, dependence on state governments, corruption, lack of qualified personnel, political interference, low revenue, poor infrastructure, and too many local governments. Reforms have been introduced to address these problems. Understanding local government is essential for understanding how Nigeria is governed at the grassroots level. Practice these concepts. When you have them down, move to topic 7.